Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button, really appreciate it. Right, on to the deck tech. Today's deck tech is going back to Ikoria, and this is one of the, I believe this is one of the cards that was in the Abzan colour deck. That wasn't the face card, but the face card's a bit boring. Yeah, okay, remove those creatures from the graveyard, put the equivalent, gets tokens the equivalent Billy. Nah, don't want to play that one. We're going to play this one instead, because I think this is a bit more fun. So what this deck tech's going to be about is Tayam, Luminous Enigma, 1 white, black and green for a 3/3 Nightmare Beast. And it says, each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional vigilance counter on it. Good. Okay, so all our creatures have vigilance, that's nice. And then we can pay 3 and remove 3 counters from among the creatures we control, mill 3 cards and return a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your battlefield. Yeah, I decided to do this. This was more fun. Now, the problem we've got, in real life, there may be other ways of doing this. But with MTGO, there's not that many cards out there that come in with the additional tokens on them. There's a few ones with shield on them. There's a few ones with this on them. But I decided to go down a slightly different route with this. Well, I suspect this is the expected route from when this first came out, to be fair. So this is what the deck looks like at the moment. So here we go. This is what the deck is. We're going to try and go with mainly a +1/+1 thing, unsurprisingly, which is the one I was talking about previously, where I think that's what everyone would have tried to do. But I have also included some of the new stuff from Streets of New Capenna. Now, it's mainly a couple of the green ones and a 1 or 2 of the white ones, because there's not any really in black that come with shield counters that are worth playing. And to be fair, a lot of the ones that do come with shield counters are probably overcosted for what happens to them. But, you know, it's another type of counter. But having the vigilance counter on them all helps. So we'll just go through the land bit. Obviously, green, black and white lands all the way through. We have got Field of the Dead in here. You haven't seen it in the last couple, but it's in this one along with Fabled Passage. The usual ones are in here for all the green, black and white lands. Marsh Flats can come out. You don't need to play Marsh Flats if you're trying to build this in real life. If you don't own one, take it out, put something else in. I've just included it because it's here. I do recommend trying to get all the dual lands though, and the Triome if you can pick one up, and Gavany Township if they're still around. It's still reasonably cheap, I think, Gavany, but I'm not sure. But we've got Reliquary Tower, we've got Temple of the False God, and we've got Yavimar Cradle of Growth as well. So that's the bit. But what we are really interested in, if you actually look at the deck, Tamiya lets us bring back stuff where it's mana value 3 or less. It says a permanent card with mana value 3 or less. So it doesn't just count creatures like some of these cards do. It counts artifacts, any planeswalkers that cost 3 or less, and anything else that's gone in. So Mox Tatellite, Soul Ring, so on and so forth. Bear it in mind. And enchantments, if you've got enchantments that have been destroyed. It doesn't count your spells. Which is why when we're going through the deck in a minute, there's going to be a lot of 3-drops in this deck, and everything else really drops down quite significantly, as you can see laid out in front of you at the moment. So, mentioned the land. The ramp is Mox Tantalite, Soul Ring, and then Signet, Diamond, 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 Diamond. That's it for the main version of the ramp. I haven't even got Solemn Simulacrum in this deck. You can add it in if you want to, but I've decided against playing it in this one. Ooh, because it costs 4. So you have things that cost 1, 2 or 3. Speaking of the things that cost 1, what I am trying to do is get, because of Tamiya's nice ability to get things out of the graveyard, I'm trying to get as many +1/+1 counters around as I can. So bear that in mind when I'm talking about the deck tech to here today. So a little more ramp, I suppose. Technically it's Bird of Paradise, but it's also a nice blocker. Hardened Scales I'm expecting to see because of the whole extra +1/+1 counters it provides when we have it in play. Elixirs in just so we can shuffle everything back in if we need to. Now to the 2-drops, which are a bit more interesting. Luminarch Aspirant. Yeah, if you've been living, you've probably, like I said, one of the deck techs I did the other day. If you've been living under a rock, you wouldn't have played against it. If you haven't been living under a rock, you have seen this so much in Standard. It's even turned up in Pioneer and Modern in recent times, I've noticed. It's there. It chucks around +1/+1 counters for the whole cheap cost of 2 mana. It's going to be good in this deck as well. And obviously, we now have its slightly bigger brother in Siege Veterans in here as well from the Brothers' War. This one's a little bit better. It's whenever a non-token soldier you control dies, you do get a soldier token. Now, we haven't got that many soldiers in the deck, but it's something to think about when we're playing this. Yeah, Luminarch Aspirant's a cleric. Anyway, and offends as a soldier, so that'll give us a token when it dies. But this one is here purely because we get to do the bolster thing when another creature enters the battlefield. And if you don't know what bolster does, you look at for the creature with the least toughness in play, and whichever one's got the least one gets a +1/+1 counter. 3 +1/+1 counters to help out Tamiya get there. Woohoo! Lethal exploits here because, you know, we are technically modifying our creatures. So this gives us a little bit of overkill. Farseek here as ramp. Galia's Greeters, +1/+1 counter when we cast creatures or trapped. Nope, let's try that again. Tapped treasure tokens that we may need to cast some of the stuff we've got coming up. I mean, we are playing 37 lands in this deck, so yeah, it probably will be the +1/+1 counter most of the time. Awesome life if we need it. Heroic intervention, protect everything. Sylvan Carroted, pump. Well, ramp as the case may be. 3 visits to ramp as well. Chevelle, Bane of Monsters, just because I like having something with Death Touch early in the game, just to control the board a little bit and chuck the counters around, so a little bit of life gain and a card draw. Fine by me. But it's a 3-drop slot where this deck really shines at. I've got 24 3-drops in here, so we are going to be returning mainly 3-drops when we hit this off. So Heliod's in here because we do have some ways to gain a little bit of life every so often. Yeah, even if it is paying 2 mana, giving something lifelink and attacking with it, gain some life, get some +1/+1 counters. Now, I could have included the other 2 mentors that came with Ikoria, but I only included Keensight in this deck because Tamiya is chucking around vigilance counters onto the creatures when they come into play. It means you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with vigilance for the low cost of 1 white and 1 and tap it. Yep, you're going to be doing it a lot. Not a lot in here is human. Well, apart from Siege Veteran I've mentioned. Teferi's Protection to protect us from everything. Bazri Ket is a cheap Planeswalker that chucks +1/+1 counters around, then make things indestructible. Biramaz, King of the Urzukis, or however you say that's 4th word on that card title, no idea. But anyway, it's a 3/4 with vigilance, can be pumped because it's not human, and yeah, get some tokens, that's always fun. Fane the Broker's also in this deck. It's an interesting choice for this deck because we are sacrificing a creature, but if you made some tokens, you don't mind losing a token. You can sacrifice a creature to put some +1/+1s around. You can remove a counter from a creature to get a treasure. You can sacrifice an artifact to get an inkling, and then pay 4 mana to untap it. So if you've got 7 mana kicking around, well, yeah, not 7 mana, we don't need it. 8 mana, 12 mana when you've done nothing for some reason in your turn. Few untaps of Fane really may help you out. Unforgiving One has Menace, and when it attacks we get to get something back from our graveyard equal to the number of modified creatures we control, and since all our creatures will be modified because of the +1/+1 counters, it seemed good. Drana, Liberator of Malakir, helps us get those modified creatures because whenever it deals combat damage you get to chuck some +1/+1 counters around on each attacking creature, so yeah. Fight Ring is just an easy way of chucking +1/+1s around. Growing Rights, because you know I'm trying to build my decks now a bit more so they're playable in real life. If you just, I've got, as I said before, I've got Gaze Cradle on MTGO. I could just swap this out for Gaze Cradle to go into the land base, but I've kept it at Growing Rights in case you're trying to build this version in real life. Jang Yang Wild Crafter, yeah. -1 to chuck a +1/+1 counter on something, and considering the amount of creatures we'll have with +1/+1 counters on, turning them all into birds of paradise isn't the worst plan in the world. Yugen defends the temple. It's very nice. We get a monk, and then we get to chuck some +1/+1s around. Then we get to exile it, turn into a dragon spirit, and then you get to pay a lot of mana, and you get to pay a lot of mana to put X +1/+1 counters on that creature. And as long as you've got control 5 or more modified creatures, a Remnant of the Rising Star has +5/+5 and has trample. Now the chances are, when this actually transforms and it gets as far as transforming, you will be having those creatures in play. Sorry if you just heard a ping, that was my phone going off. Yeah. So you'll probably transform this and have an instant 7/7 flyer on the board, and your opponent's going and see what happens. Right. One of the main things, though, is Kodama of the West Tree. This helps us ramp out our basic lands. Now, we haven't got many. We've got 3 forests, 4 plains and 4 swamps because we've got Yaramar. But, you know, you might as well get some rampage out of it if we're going to play it. And obviously the best bit about this whole thing is all the modified creatures we control have trample. So that means we get the damage through a lot easier. Tireless Tracker was an easy way of getting a modified creature because we can sacrifice the crews because of the land ramp. Druid's Repository, purely because I want to be able to get some mana out to help recast this when it obviously dies, because this will attract every bit of removal in the world, which is why we have Swiftfoot Boots in the deck. But Druid's Repository, we get some charge counters on it, we get to add some mana, it's all good. Likewise, Jade Light Ranger is mana value 3, but it could come in potentially as a 4/3, so it gives you a nice big chump, big blocker, you know, especially if you've got this in play. Vindicate to remove something that's really annoying us. King Dariel, I can't work out what the renewal rules are. I keep meaning to look it up, I forget. But anyway, King Darian's here just to pump up our creatures and create some tokens if we need to. It's also a nice way of sacrificing him to give all our creature tokens. We may have hexproof and indestructible for a while. Pledge of Unity is nice. 3 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control, and then we gain 1 life for each creature we control. Yeah. And it's instant, so it's a nice little combat trick that people seem to forget about quite regularly. Zavala Explorer returns here, just so we can do the parlay bit. Who doesn't like a little bit of parlay? I really think this should look a bit more like Johnny Depp, but, you know, going to do the pirates bit, but it's a scout, so maybe. But parlay, every time I hear it, can't help but think of the Pirates of the Caribbean, so there you go. Absent Ascendancy is something you can take out, I'm going to be honest about you. I put it in because it does chuck some +1/+1 counters around, which is fine. But I'm not 100% sure that having it in just to get some spirits when creatures die is such a good plan. But I'm going to try and see what happens. However, Anafenza, the foremost, I do want in. 4/4 for 3 mana, 1 of each colour of the deck. To put a +1/+1 when it attacks, and if a non-token creature an opponent owns would die, or a creature is put not onto the battlefield, would be put into the opponent's graveyard, exile it instead. Yeah, it's just a nice way of getting rid of some annoying stuff. So, but what you've got to remember is we've got 24, 38, 42, 49 cards that Tamiya can bring back into play by removing some counters, so bear it in mind. The rest of it, a little bit more complicated. Felidar retreats in because the landfall means +1/+1 counters. Semester's End is something I don't think enough people are playing yet, and I know it's been on MTGO for a while and I don't see it that often, but you can actually help your creatures survive a thing like a Wrath of God or a Damnation by actually doing Semester's End, exiling them all in response to the Damnation or Wrath of God. And then they all come back in with a load of +1/+1 and counters on them. It's a no-brainer, everybody. It's a no-brainer. Anyway, Wrath, Damnation, mentioned them. Root, to go and find some lands. Voice of the Vermin is one of the other ones from Streets of New Capenna with a shield counter on it. But this one's quite nice because whenever it attacks, you can give a creature we control a base toughness and power of 4/4. Can't complain at that one. It's all good. And Fangreen Firstborn is a card I completely forgot about from Darksteel. And yeah, I remembered about it. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature. Puts one on itself. So the first time this attacks, it becomes a 5/3. Then it becomes a 6/4, 7/5, 8/6, 9/7, so on and so forth. And all your other creatures are getting big as well. It's great. Likewise, Ajani, the Great Heart, is here. Another way of giving all your creatures vigilance if you're a mana missing to do this. So it'll still work with our mentor. And it also means you gain some life and chucks a ball +1/+1 counters around. Why wouldn't you want to do it that way? Right, 5 drops. We're getting to the end. Archangel of Thune, gain some life, chuck some +1/+1 counters around. Cathar's Crusade gives you a lot of +1/+1 counters. Defiler of Vigor. I think I've talked about this Defiler before recently. You're going to be casting a lot of green spells. They're going to come in with +1/+1 counters chucked onto a creature as you cast them. Fine by me. The other version of Jarni's in because the +1 lets you distribute the 3 +1/+1 counters, so you can chuck them all on one creature to make it bigger. You can pump up some of your smaller things. And then Nethroi, Apex of Death's in as well. This is purely so you can mutate this onto one of your other creatures and get everything back from the graveyard that may have been killed. Elspeth for some soldier tokens to protect the board. And also to blow anything up that's amazingly boring you for it's got power 4 or more. Likewise, get into the -7 and make sure the creatures get +2/+2 and have fly and will win the game, like it always has done. Sanctuary Warden's in, purely because it comes in with 2 shield counters, the 5/5 flyer for 6 mana. You can remove a counter from a creature or planeswalker you control to draw a card and get a citizen token. We'll have a lot of ways of removing tokens, so let's have some citizen blockers. And Tiana's command. Tiana's command. I will learn to say it right one day. I'm really sorry if I've just offended anybody. Apologies. T command. There we go. We'll go with that. 6 mana. Go and get your 2 balls and get your +1/+1 counters on everything. The big one from Streets of New Capenna, Titan of Industry. Yep. Okay. Reach, trample comes into play. Blow something up. Gain some life. Get a Rhino warrior creature token, or shield counter on a creature you control. Yep, I'm happy with that, thank you. Eerie Ultimatum, bring everything back from the graveyard eventually when it's all been blown up, and then the Great Henge to make sure we always get a modified or +1/+1 creature into play. Now, there are a couple of cards that I haven't specifically put in, one of which is Panharmonicon. I was just trying to think what it was. I think Panharmonicon works with some of the cards in the deck. You get the triggers when they come into play, but I'm not, Sanctuary Warden comes in with a load of shield counters on it. Anything else that comes into play and puts anything around. But I did look at it and I did try and build it around. It just wasn't worth it. Hence why I went with this build instead. It's definitely one of the cards I know is missing. This is also quite a good card when the new Elesh Norn comes out. It should probably be included in this deck. But at the moment, this is what we've got for Tayam. And that's what I'm going to be playing. So I hope you've liked the video. If you can think of any other cards I've missed, please let me know down below. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button. Just, cheer me up. Let's try and aim. I'm aiming for, I have a number in my head. I'm not going to put it in a video yet, but I'll let you all know when I get there. But yeah, let me know down below what I think I've missed, what I could have done better. And hopefully you'll come and see me on the stream. There's a link for that down below. Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye.